Thank you very much, Mr. President. I wanted to ask you about the situation in Armenia at the moment, the political situation. How concerned are you? Also, the Prime Minister, Nikol Pashinyan, who is the man that you've signed the ceasefire deal with in November, if he's removed from his position, there are other politicians in Armenia who are, it seems, quite keen to tear up the ceasefire deal and start all over again. So are you concerned that these problems could come up again for Azerbaijan? And also on top of that, I wondered if you'd had any kind of relationship at all with Nikol Pashinyan since he came to power and how that has been, and if you have a relationship at all with him at the moment. Thank you very much.
Well, the situation in Armenia is very clear. Again, I prefer not to go into much details because whatever I say can be used by different, political groups for their favor. Therefore, I think they themselves will decide what to do. But of course, as a neighbor and as a country, we just ended the war with Armenia. We cannot be absolutely neutral. So we have, of course, our views on that. And I think that no matter who is in charge in Armenia, any attempt to violate the implementation of November 10th declaration will be very harmful for Armenia. As I already quoted President Putin, that will be a suicide. That's exactly the word, because it will be only worse. Therefore, today in Armenia, they should understand that the situation in which they found themselves is a result of their long-lasting policy against Azerbaijan. It's a result of their occupation. It's not only what happened in the last 2 years or 3-4 months. No, it's just because, occupation, and they lost all their ideological, basis. All the ideology was based on Azerbaijanophobia, on mythology, on the presentation of them as glorious, country which defeated Azerbaijan. But when we were just tête-à-tête, one-to-one, it was clear who is the winner. So I'm, of course, watching the situation, what is happening there, but frankly speaking, I am not concerned about if changes can deter the implementation of declaration. First of all, because it is signed, it's an official document. And second, and maybe most important, is because it is also signed by a Russian president. And taking into account today's Armenian dependence on Russia, which is maybe 10 times more than before the war, and before the war, maybe in the world, it was the most dependent on Russia country. It is clear. It's not something which I want to accuse someone of. I'm just telling the reality. Before the war, there was no country more dependent on Russia than Armenia. Now, 10 times more. So would any Armenian leader dare to violate, the decision of Russian president? Because it's not only bilateral statement, and the importance of that statement for long-lasting peace is that Russian president's signature is there. Therefore, I am not concerned about that. It can create unnecessary movements, unnecessary expectations, and usually in Armenia, the history shows that in order to come to power, politicians were using very populistic statements, and those who were trying to explain the real situation sometimes suffered from that. We know it from Armenian 30 years history. So I do not exclude that there will be statements of very hostile and revanchist origin, but that will only damage their own interests because they will then have to step back from them. So in any case, declaration of 10th of November will be implemented, whether Armenian leadership wants it or not. My communications with Mr. Pashinyan ended after his provocative steps and statements. I already spoke about them. Before that, I think we had established contacts. He was the initiator of establishment of these contacts. In 2019, during our meeting in Dushanbe, when our Armenian opposition accuses him about lift diplomacy, it's very funny. It just happened that we were in the same elevator going to a meeting. And it would maybe lasted 1 minute because it was from one floor to another. And now in Armenia they accuse him of lift diplomacy in Dushanbe. What kind of diplomacy can be in elevator going from one floor to another? But in Dushanbe, he offered, made a proposal to be more committed to ceasefire, and he promised that he will make necessary steps to put an end to conflict. And I said, okay, and after that, they've been established a direct link between our representatives, and if something on the line of contact happened, Armenian representative always contacted Azerbaijani representative, and we regulated that. And then Pashinyan himself was saying that in the history there have been never such a quiet situation on the line of contact. And why? Because he asked me about that, and I thought that it will be good for peace. I thought that he will change the policy of his predecessors, aggressive policy against Azerbaijan. He will be realistic, he will understand the reality, but unfortunately he misinterpreted my gesture. He thought that this is a sign of weakness, though it was a sign of force. And he suffered from that. So after his dancings and jumpings in Shusha and statements like Karabakh is Armenia, our contacts stopped, and during the war we also didn't have any contacts. We met at the invitation of President Putin in Moscow in January, but that was a trilateral. We didn't have any kind of a bilateral communication since that time.